Hey, everybody. Welcome to an extra large episode of Outside of the Box as I have the vast majority of Team Yeti here with me. We have Greg, Christian, James, and Ange. I'm so excited to have all of you with me today.
Likewise.
Yeah,
Thanks for having us on.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Well, Yeti is certainly, for me, a very exciting robot. 65% career win percentage, which is phenomenal, especially given the level of competition that's out there. 40% knockouts. Just a really amazing drum spinner. And so, we're going to talk about kind of last season, which honestly I thought was a really great season for Yeti, and kind of what next season looks like, from here. So we'll kind of get things kicked off. Is there anything, in general, generally speaking from last season that, like, reflecting back on it, that you took away from it? Not necessarily related to any particular match, but just kind of overall.
We probably should have ran forks more. By the time we actually got to running them, which I've always sort of hated and avoided, they were actually kind of our key component.
It definitely won the Scorpios fight for us.
And at least gave us a fighting chance against Cobalt. Like early on, we were able to get under and be okay. And then, of course, we got demolished. But yeah, looking back at like Mad Catter fight, where the plan was to use the forks, and at the very last second, they said, it's not going to work. I should have just left it alone.
Yeah, but that was the first fight. That's always first fight. It's easy to second guess.
Yeah, the ground game was definitely a bigger issue this season than it was in previous ones. In other ones, we had a lot of ground clearance. We could drive over people, that kind of stuff.
That's what made Yeti great, is driving up on over people.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, this season, definitely you see a lot of other people. Everybody's adding forks. The ground game is where it's at now. So it's something that we figured out eventually, but it took a minute.
Yeah, not to just plan that for a second. That was a bit of a struggle this design around, because watching Yeti, and before I joined the team, climb up on top of robots is awesome, but climbing up on top of robots is not awesome against a vertical disc spinner.
Yeah,
that's the problem.
Yeah, we climbed on top of Bombshell.
Yeah. But so like that monster truck feel, maybe I'm getting a little ahead of myself on the design, but wanted to keep that monster truck feel, but yet you got to win the ground game. So that's a different animal.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it definitely is. And speaking of animals, we'll kind of get into that first match against Mad Catter. As always, I thought that Yeti started that match very aggressive. But like you kind of alluded to with the fork situation, it seemed like you really couldn't get under them. Kind of take me through that match, and like more about what kind of shape Yeti was actually in after that match, because it was pretty brutal.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember the fight well, but I know Mad Catter is kind of the perfect design that we don't want to fight. Like that, there's not really a good weak point. There's not, like, none of Yeti's advantages really work for that style of just semi-compact, well-armored, vertical disc. There's not enough for us to do. It used to be that the answer was just go weapon to weapon, and we're, the arms race has outstripped us long ago. Mm-hmm. So we're still, 10 years old in our weapon speed and technology. So we don't have a chance going up against them and their crazy, super fast brushless. Yeah. So, most people are near that 250 mile an hour tip speed. I think we're half of that. Mm-hmm. So weapon to weapon, we're just not in that class anymore. And that doesn't leave a lot of options.
Yeah.
Earlier with the forks, everything was working great until it wasn't. When he had the forks out, it was okay. We were kind of getting some hits. We were taking some hits. And then once one of the lifter tips bent up, that was pretty much the end of us, because they were getting under us every time. And then we were kind of a passenger at that point. So
Yeah, unfortunately, it sometimes breaks that way, but it could have broke the other way. I mean, we aren't exactly bleeding edge technology, but we're on the reliable side. So sometimes we just outlast an opponent and to get the better of them. Like Pain Train's a good example. I mean, that was a good head to, not to get ahead of the next fight, but it was pretty even at the beginning, and then we started to edge them, and then we took the distance.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm actually curious about that fight because I know one thing that I heard in kind of like the pre-fight interview is that you went with a lighter drum on that fight, and I just wanted to see if you thought that in particular made any kind of a difference, or if there was anything else different in that fight, that kind of caused it to be very much the opposite of the Mad Catter fight.
Well, I think we only have one size drum this year. The one thing going into that fight, we had watched some of the previous videos of Pain Train, and it was not driving well. It was, it couldn't really track a straight line well. Kind of the classic two-wheel drive robot problems. And so we said, okay, we can be patient. We'll get our angle. I'm not just going to do the stupid drum to drum thing. I'm going to actually like strategize here because I think I can outdrive them. Mm-hmm. And then clearly they fixed those issues as soon as the fight started. Like, oh, damn it, they can drive. Yeah. Evan, obviously can drive a robot very well, but like it seemed like Pain Train had some issues.
A lot of issues.
They fixed those. So very quickly as well, he's not going to let me get to the side so easy. So we did end up with some head to head.
Yeah, and I'm also curious because I know it's probably hard to recall all of the like exact details of every fight, but once they, kind of got quite a bit disabled, they had, some movement, but obviously they weren't moving really well. You did keep attacking, which, I mean, that's my personal philosophy. If a bot's still moving, you got to keep trying to go at it. I mean, is that kind of what you were wanting to do in that fight, just to make sure that you were still aggressive since a count out wasn't happening at that point?
Yeah, I mean, at least for me, it's not really a thought process. A split second can mean everything. If you let off the throttle to try to determine, wait a minute, are they partially disabled? Like that could be the difference in them getting that one hit they need. So you don't really have time to analyze it that much. Like it's one thing if you've like, thrown someone across the arena and they're on their side or something. Like way back, we fought Chomp. He was on its side and it couldn't self-right. Okay, that's very clear to me that I can hang back. But when you're up against a spinner, I mean, you just, one wrong move, one hesitation can turn the fight around. So, yeah.
And I think we've seen that plenty of times. I mean, I still recall back before, I think there was a situation before everybody knew that the screws turned the opposite way, that I want to say that it was Witch Doctor got caught in the screws, and then all of a sudden the screws turn the opposite way, and you never know what's going to happen. So it's always a good idea to make sure that you're paying attention to that. So that was one thing that I thought was particularly good, in that fight to kind of keep doing. I mean, that was a very strong win, I thought. Then, you talked about the Scorpios fight earlier. I just thought that was a great match overall. Obviously, I've talked to Team Scorpios about that from their perspective. It looked like they took a belt off in the beginning of that fight, but it didn't seem to affect Yeti at all. And you were able to get under Scorpios a lot, which I think made a big difference in that fight. Kind of, talk a little bit about that one.
Well, Chris could probably speak to the redundancy and the belts and in that situation.
Yeah, it wasn't as so. There's a lot of things we're trying to do. We're trying to get all the functionality of Yeti in a smaller package so we can better armor it. But we didn't have as many belts as we wanted. We didn't have it protected as well as we wanted, but we did have multiple belts at least. So they did nick the one right away. That's a bummer. But fortunately, they didn't get the other one until like the last 30 seconds of the match, I think. Did they get the second one at that, something like that? Yeah. So fortunately, we just had a pretty rock solid weapon drive as far as the package of the motors to the drum. So it lasted most of the match.
That definitely worked out well. And I'm curious though, because Scorpios, I mean, they're not really a traditional like vertical spinner or anything like that. I mean, they kind of have a different kind of weapon, but I mean, are they different in that, you know, I know that's not the ideal robot for Yeti to go up against, but are they different because of the way that their weapon works versus a traditional vertical spinner?
Yeah, I think so. They're not super powerful, but they're very, very precise. If you look at the drum after the match, you can see there are two perfect slice marks right where our weapon belts are. So Diana did an amazing job getting right into the right position and then bringing the drum down. Because if you brought it down on the tooth, that would be the end of their disc for the whole fight. And she brought it down just at the right time to hit both belts in separate hits, and that's what disabled our weapon. So props to that. She did a really good job.
I think they were saying they were talking about the fight against us. And they had put on those demon horns or something, and that might have like tipped their CG a little bit. So I was personally worried because Scorpius is one of those robots that just keeps going. It's super durable, and we were a first time design out. You know, I mean, it's based on reliable things, but it's still our first competition with this new design, and they had that massive front wedge, and yeah, it's just a very seasoned veteran. But I think maybe because of a CG issue, and we just won the ground game on that one.
I mean, that put you at, you know, 2 wins, which obviously I'm sure contributed quite a bit to getting into the tournament, you know, in the place that you did. You ended up drawing Cobalt, which, you know, was probably one of the most destructive robots in the regular season for sure. Unfortunately, and not probably not the ideal matchup that you wanted. What was your strategy going into that?
We pretty much knew that they can take us out with one hit, and we can't do the same. I mean, because that thing is just an AR box, and it's a hell of a weapon. So we pretty much went in knowing that we had to fight a perfect fight. I had to drive with 0 mistakes and just keep getting under them and hitting them and never let their weapon hit us. Mm-hmm. And lo and behold, yeah, that's exactly what happened. Like we did okay for a little bit. You know, we kept the forks down and under, and then, you know, one kind of wrong move that I made at some point, forks got bent up, stopped being able to get under, and then it was over. And they, you know, that one hit where they really connected with us, I mean, we damn near hit the roof. Yeah. And yeah, that thing is just
it's a brick. It's a brick. Yeah.
It's terrible.
Yeah. It's those fights that like we wanted anyone else in that branch of the bracket than Cobalt. Anyone.
I mean, like, honestly, at the beginning of the fight, because I just had rewatched it and I'm like, you know, wow, like Yeti was doing really well in the beginning, but like you said, all it takes is just that one, and that it's completely different. So, you know, I thought it was a very strong fight up to that point. And like you said, it's just a matchup issue. I mean, does that come up very often where, you know, it's just like you get the exact worst matchup you could think of and you have to try and figure out how you can possibly, you know, make it through that?
Well, it's rock, paper, scissors. That's kind of the joke. Valbot's like, you know, this robot could beat that robot, et cetera, et cetera. It circles round. Some of the robots that are more modular do decently well, but I feel like if you're modular between like your weapon weight and your armor weight, and we had a little bit of that, like we were able to move armor around depending on who we were fighting, but yeah, in that case, it was just like Greg says, we had to do everything perfectly.
Yeah, I mean, you know, still, even with that situation, you know, when you look at just like the history of Yeti, you know, I don't know, I think some people forget because it was a couple of years ago, but I mean, Yeti was a semifinal robot in 2019. Like this is a really strong robot. You know, is there anything that you're doing like for the future to try and, you know, change anything, or do you think, kind of stick with what's worked for you, or what's kind of the plan as far as that goes?
Christian?
Well, okay, so we talked about this before and after the competition, and okay, what made Yeti? Well, the monster truck styling, the forks, the drum. That was basically it. And all right, can we have all of that together? Would that still work in the modern field? No. Everyone's going down. Everybody's basically narrowing down on that center disc, well armored, low to the ground stuff. So it's tough. Like we constantly went back and forth to having the forks, not having the forks. Moving forward, we would need to change our weapon technology, get that tip speed up to the 250 miles an hour, maybe put more weight into that. But then we're starting to be more like we're becoming more like Mad Catter. We'll use them as an example. We're being more of an armored box, or more like Cobalt. With you have your and do we have a drum? Do we have a disc? I mean, drums are great. I mean, Minotaur does a good job, but lately Minotaur's been, at one point you'd think like Minotaur was the apex predator, but now we're seeing some robots that are able to take those hits from Minotaur and hit it right back. So maybe it's not drum, maybe it's not the beater, maybe it has to be that center disc that's well armored. Maybe it's more like what Cobalt is your crazy armored tank. You're mobile just enough, and you just keep waiting for that one hit. And that might be what we're all focusing down in. So is there really room to have a Yeti that is a monster truck look, monster truck action, retractable forks, and drum or disc? Either way, can you fit all that in 250 pounds? What sacrifices are we going to make moving forward? And then do we want to do that? Do we want to be a Yeti that is not the Yeti that people love?
Yeah, the whole concept of just ending up designing, the next Mad Cat or Hypershock, whatever, is constant dialogue in our design routines. Every time we kind of talk like, yeah, but then we just describe Hypershock. Like if we say, hey, let's not have so much power in the arms, and let's just do a shorter double disc, and they're like, oh, okay. And we can always kind of design our way to bite force. And then we have to stop and say, but that's not what we want to do. We want to have it be Yeti, have some character, and unfortunately that means some design sacrifices.
Yeah, what drew me to you guys in season 2 is your design look, your design language. I love that. I love that look. I love that style. And so that's when we started talking. And then to be forced away from that is not exactly what I want to sign up for. So where can we find that compromise? That's kind of what we're struggling with.
Right. And I definitely I can see that, because I mean, one of a big thing that I've talked about with a couple of teams is that for me, robots, like, they have to have personality, and like not only that, but they have to reflect the team personality. And I think Yeti does that so well to, drastically change that, would change what essentially what the personality of the robot is. And I think that it's so important to kind of at least be true to that to some extent. So I'll kind of be curious, because, sure, Bite Force was very successful. There's a lot of robots that are very successful, but you don't want every robot to look like that. That there has to be some difference. I just talked to Mammoth not that long ago. Very unique robot, very different. And, they have their own challenges, but it's great to see something that's different. And I think that that's really important. I'm actually curious, like, speaking of difference, because, I'm a fan. I try and know as much as I can, but, I'm not a builder, and I don't know all of like the intimate aspects of building the robots. But, when you're looking at other drum spinners like Minotaur, like Copperhead, what makes Yeti different than those robots at this point in time?
I think part of it is kind of what Chris was talking about, is we're trying to have it all. So I think we have a lot on our drivetrain. Like we're pretty fast. We got a lot of pushing power. We can do the forks. We can do all that. But it means, no one part is as optimized as it could be. So Copperhead, Minotaur, any of those are far more powerful. I guess you could say we're more versatile, but it kind of doesn't matter how versatile you are if someone's punching you in the face.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the main difference is we went halfway on our drum and, a little bit on the forks and a little bit on the drive. We're trying to build 3 different robots, right? A really fast wedge, a lifter, and a drum. And we're trying to do it all in 250 pounds, and that's not smart.
Yeah.
So like Chris was talking about, something, if we're going to be all about the weapon, you don't need to have all the weight that we do in our drivetrain, right? We can go with lighter motors and gear it down. It doesn't need to be as torquey. We don't need to be able to run across the arena at full speed with another robot on top of us. Yeah.
Yeah, fair point. I'm also curious. I mean, Yeti's been around for some time, and you've obviously had a lot of, fights in that time, but are there any robots out there right now that you're like, I really want that fight, that would be a fun fight to have?
Who do you want to see it fight, Ange?
You just put me on the spot.
I put you on the spot.
Oh my god.
It could be just for fun. If the people you like out there, you just want to see a fight.
I was bummed that we never fought Minotaur.
We didn't ever fight Minotaur, huh?
I wouldn't have mind doing a horizontal spinner, whether it be Giga or Shredderator or even Tombstone. Although you did Tombstone with prior, but just seemed like we had a lot of vertical spinners.
Yeah, I would like to see us fight Rotator. I think that'd be an awesome fight. Victor,
that would have been great.
Yeah, lots of forks, lots of undercutters. Something we haven't really fought yet is an undercutter. So that would be
huge.
We didn't fight huge.
No, I haven't fought huge.
You know what? Valkyrie would have been a good fight, I think.
Also, yeah, same.
Huge or Mammoth, back when we could really lift our drum up with the forks, could have been an interesting one to see if that could have been the strategy to try to hit them up high.
Yeah.
But that was another one where the whole concept, the way we could use the forks and lift way up had its own, disadvantages. And so we ended up kind of going away from that. Yeah. But that wasn't quick.
All of those would be great choices. We'll see what happens in the coming season with that. I actually have like a question for Ange because, there's more, I think, females in BattleBots than there used to be, but like, how is that being part of a team? Because I'll tell you right now, like, my daughter, she's 6, she's a huge fan of BattleBots, and Yeti's one of her favorite teams, and she says, Mom, I like the team with the girl. So like, I just think that's so important because she's very into building, she's very into robots, and to see someone on TV doing that, I think is great for little girls like her.
That's awesome. I'm so glad because I really am like, I don't really know that much about building. I don't. I'm not, like, I do a lot of the designing and stuff like that, but like, these guys found me like out of the wild and just were like, hey, come to Vegas, and I'm like, sure. So
I don't think anybody found you. I think you basically showed what a super fan you were.
I'm looking at the painting right now.
Yeah.
That got my attention.
Yeah. Oh, I don't think I could have gotten picked by a better team though. I would not. I don't know who I would rather have the day, Greg called me, and it was so awesome. And, just after being with these guys and spending that whole time in Vegas with them and everything. And it's just like, Greg was supposed to get this tattoo, but,
buy our merch.
We'll see. Yeah.
You can still do it.
Stay tuned. Yeah. But yeah, it is really, really cool for chicks to be, doing engineering and design and everything just like that, just like to be part of it is something incredible. It's just something really great.
We've got a 30-pound robot we're kind of tinkering with and getting Ange involved, so she's turning wrenches.
I'm turning wrenches. That's something I knew. The right way.
Yeah.
Turning them the right way. Yeah.
Yeah, you're there. I'm not there helping.
Yeah.
Don't sell
Thanks,
yourself
Chris.
short. Yeah.
That is very cool. I'm guessing at this point, that there hasn't been any word. I think what everybody says is the fans will probably know when the teams know as far as next season. I'm guessing there's no news on that at this point.
We're waiting for the call.
Which speaking of that, another thing that I'm curious about, because Greg, Christian, I mean, all you guys have been doing this for a long time. There's a lot of teams that are newer, I know, that are hoping to get in this season or are trying to develop robots to come in. What do you think are the biggest things that those teams that haven't been a part of BattleBots yet should know coming into this? Like what should they be aware of to kind of prepare?
Immediately. Don't do it. Save your money.
Yeah, if you don't mind spending money, go ahead and do it.
It's definitely more of a marathon than a sprint. We're there for over 2 weeks and spend months designing and building. Don't try to win it all your first time, but it's definitely going to be a learning experience.
Bring sunscreen.
I would recommend anyone do it, but there's so many things out there that aren't BattleBots, the 3-pounder, 30-pounder, et cetera, that are well worth doing because you learn a lot doing that. You realize just what a hard deadline it is. I know the very, very first time I tried to compete when I was 26 years old, I missed it. I missed that season of Robot Wars and had to come in the following year. So it's definitely a learning experience.
And actually, that kind of leads to a question for you, Christian. And I mean, I know Greg and James have been doing it for a while too, so really any of you can answer. But what are the biggest things that have changed since this was first a sport until what we see today?
The most important thing that's changed is I got older.
You don't look a day over 60.
Yeah, I'm getting close. It has gotten so crazy competitive. I mean, it's so quaint. Back in the day, Robot Wars in San Francisco, you didn't even have a box. You just had a low wall, and the energy, the power has just gotten so amazing, and all these I don't want to say kids, but they started as kids. They started when they were 7 or 8, and you see them now. All the Jameson Goes and all those people, they started when they were like this tall. So it's amazing, and it's actually very promising for the country and the nation in general that you see these people getting into it at such a young age, and that for every one that you see on TV, there's 100 that are trying to do the same thing at home at that age.
Yeah, and I think that's wonderful, for kids to get into
like your daughter. Yeah, your daughter. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, I mean, they have, I think, a lot more STEM camps and things like that out there that kids can go to. I know, she just finished one, Camp Innovation, that I know that they do nationally in different places. So, yeah, I think that it's a great trend to see, because there's a lot that you can do in robotics, even just beyond robot fighting. So
I do. Sorry, no. Yeah. I realize there's an important point I want to make. One thing that hasn't changed from my day to this day is the camaraderie. We're very different people from all sorts of different ideologies, but we're all part of the same family and BattleBots. And I can meet somebody for the first time, but if they've been doing BattleBots even once, and I consider them a brother or sister. So that hasn't changed. So I'm happy to see that. Some of my best friends to this day are people I met at Robot Wars half a lifetime ago. And I expect that to continue.
Is there ever, I mean, because that's something that I definitely have consistently heard from the teams is, about the camaraderie and everybody helps each other, like with Glitch having the situation that they did last year. And I heard that, a lot of people tried to help them. Is there ever any like clashing between teams, or is that really not a thing that happens?
On Facebook.
I think I'd say infighting within a team is probably more common. Just so you're in there for 18 hours a day for 2 weeks, anyone's gonna, get on your nerves. But I don't know of any like team clash or whatever. But yeah, after a week or two, we all probably start bickering at each other.
Yeah, I mean, you do see some like some stuff on the show. A lot of that though seems like exaggerated personality for TV and not real like actual.
You caught that, huh?
Yeah. It's a combination of two things. It's a combination of, yes, there's a little bit of exaggeration going on. There's also a huge adrenaline dump that happens in 3 minutes during a fight and in the time immediately after. You see people get upset, they get mad, they say some things maybe they shouldn't have in an interview. And 5 minutes later, they're over it, and then everybody goes back to being friends. So that's definitely something that the whole point of the sport is to go and break your friend's toy. So it's really hard to get mad afterwards because they broke your toy. So, you can get mad for a minute, and then you try to get over it and get back on with it.
For you guys, what percentage of doing this and having the robot fighting, what percentage is actual competitiveness where you want to win, and how much of it is just going out there and having fun?
We might all have different answers for that. Mine is much more like I want to put on good fights. I'd rather lose an exciting fight than win a boring one, and that is very much into the Yeti design. It's why we don't have the biggest, baddest drum. We have the drum that I know how to make reliable. And that to me is going to be better than a new, more powerful drum that might not be as reliable. I want to make sure it lasts 3 minutes. And so that's more, I know that when we show up, we don't have a champion robot. Like we just don't. And that's cool.
But all our fights were good.
Yeah.
We have very entertaining. Yeah, very entertaining.
One of them.
They all made it to TV.
No boring fights there.
That's important.
It's fun to win.
Yeah.
And winning is often cheaper because you don't have as many broken parts to replace. So like winning is cool. But yeah, we know very well if you're aiming just to win, you're going to design a bite force end game, whatever. And we're not doing that. So when we're aware of that.
And then I have to ask this question because I ask all of the teams and I've gotten so many different answers and they're all interesting. So I always have to ask, but with there were calls for a lot of changes after last season, whether fans or builders or, whoever was calling for various changes for BattleBots, especially the upper deck, was something that a lot of people really had feelings about. What do all of you feel next year that if you could, tell the BattleBots folks, these are the things that I want to, change. These are the things that I really like and want to keep, what would that be for you?
I'd say the biggest thing we'd want to know is time. The upper deck was sprung on us, 4 weeks before the season? We already had designed and we're halfway built with a nice new low ground clearance, very optimized Yeti. And then all of a sudden the upper deck pops up, and that would have been perfect for us in the old configuration with the 2 inches of ground clearance to be able to drive up, drive down, things like that. And we gave about, half an hour of thought to scrapping it and just bringing the old one back. But we didn't end up wanting to do that. So just having the time to know all these things, all these changes in advance so we can get ready for them is probably the biggest thing.
Yeah, I mean, a change to the battle box can be really good if it changes the robots. Because, things are getting, at least for me, a little stale, right? We're not seeing a whole lot of different styles of robots the way we used to. And you could introduce some changes to the box that might spark those. But if you do it after everyone's already designed and built, then all you're going to do is make a problem in a fight instead of spurring ingenuity.
Mm-hmm.
So I think they have the opportunity to do that, but time. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. There's been talk of splitting the upper deck into the corners. I know Mammoth said they want a cave. I'm not really sure how that would work, but could be interesting.
Yeah, I personally would like to see an upper deck that's smaller with ramps. And that would be kind of cool because then you could see like the faster robots go up and around and get around. Like if they're in a corner, then they could actually, go around and maybe corner the other robot that's not as nimble. That might be fun to see. But to James's point, they've got to let us know well in advance, because any significant change you make to a robot design has to get vetted through a season, unless you go very conservative with designs, because a lot of these robots now are so optimized. Like you saw it with Minotaur a couple seasons ago, and you're seeing it now with Tombstone. It's like they're trying to change what they have, and they're having issues with these changes because they had something that's been baked in over a decade of work. So that's also why you're getting super destructive robots now, is that the box hasn't changed until just recently. So if they're going to do anything drastic to force more change, you just have to give us more time.
Exactly, because if they wait to the last minute and all of a sudden they say we're going to weld a bunch of bars across the floor to stop everybody's forks, nobody's going to have time to design around that. All you're going to do is have a bunch of boring fights where their forks get stuck on a bunch of stuff. So it may be that's the direction they want to go in, but they need to make sure that it enhances the fight and changes the game rather than just being a hindrance and makes a bunch of boring fights.
What do you think about, aside from the upper deck, but what do you think about something else that's been brought up is like other arena hazards, or obviously they already have like the kill saws and things like that, but what do you think about that type of thing being further enhanced?
So I was the original designer of the kill saws and the spikes and the first the very, very first pay-per-view or Long Beach event. And the spikes were a mess. The kill saws were pretty popular right away. So obviously that's what worked. And they introduced the hammers. I'm not a big fan of the screws. I feel like the screws are more problems than they solve. I think the kill saws are always going to be good. Maybe a thrower, maybe some sort of like a flipper. But honestly, I would like to keep it simple. I would rather have less things and more things in the battle box.
Yeah, I'd like to see something, not even an arena hazard, but something like it changes to keep the bots more contained. Like they had changed the arena this time and they closed off the area behind the screws, behind the I-beams and stuff to keep bots in the arena. Is there a way you can put a big angled piece of Lexan or something in the corner throw out areas? So you can't throw somebody, 8 feet in the air and land them right by the door. It just comes up, hits the wall and comes back in. That changes the game a lot. And I think that would be a lot different of a change, because there's not just one area where, you saw in the previous seasons Endgame, they would just corral somebody in that corner, pop them over the rail, and they won in 30 seconds, which is awesome the first 4 times you see it.
It doesn't make for for me, honestly, I think that the fights that go the full 3 minutes and are just back and forth to the end. I mean, I know that they always say you don't want to leave the decision up to the judges, but like you want to get the most that you can out of that fight too. You don't want it to be done in 20 seconds.
Exactly. And I don't begrudge anybody that's trying to win the fight when the object is to win the fight. So they're doing what they can with the arena in the most efficient way possible, but maybe they should take that way away from them.
It could certainly take an advantage away from some of the flippers who probably would love to just get the robot out of the arena. So
but then you have to make the Will Bales. Oops, I accidentally knocked him over the wall face. I will.
Yeah. Will doesn't see this. I'm showing it to him.
Good job announcing. You did great at Remars.
Awesome. Yeah, and that was I obviously haven't seen it yet because they haven't put the videos up or anything like that, but it definitely sounds like it was an interesting event.
Yeah. it looks like they had a good crowd. Everybody was excited for it. So we've seen some, fan videos and stuff on Instagram. It looks like it was a great time.
Amazing. Well, I'm truly looking forward to next season. I mean, it sounds like a lot of the teams are planning on making some changes, which, I mean, it's an ever evolving sport that seems like it's kind of the name of the game, and that's kind of what everybody has to do from year to year. But I am very excited to see what Yeti can do. Everybody, once the Yeti merch is out, buy those shirts. They're awesome shirts. Just buy them. Yeah. There you go.
We have a second one. Smash them up. This will also be available on Ange's merch store once she gets that set up.
Yeah. Once I get that set up.
Awesome. That one is kid appropriate, so I can get one of those for my kiddo.
I need to have some family friendly stuff.
Yeah.
Well, do any of you have any last things to add before we wrap it up?
I guess I'll be the one. I'll thank all of our sponsors. First off, Christian, C2 Robotics. Thanks for coming in, bringing us all kind of out of retirement for, to do this again. Max Amps batteries, Liquid Focus. Those guys have all been great. They were very helpful in the building a bot. They ease some of the burden on paying for this. We're always looking for new ones, so slide into our DMs if you want.
Yeah, by all means, please do.
You can hit up Ange. Yeah.
Yeah, you can hit up me.
You're welcome.
For sponsorship opportunities.
Sponsorship opportunities.
Yeah, that's a good cover story.
Well, I appreciate you all for joining me on the show. This was a great time. Yeti is still and probably will forever be one of my favorite bots out there. So I definitely wish you all the best of luck in the coming season.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Having us.
Wonderful. Well, we will see you next time on Outside of the Box.
Bye.